Well, I think, the conversation today, it's a little bit about what are you trying to achieve when you want to fix a horse, and especially when you fix a horse in one session or two, and what are the implications with fixing horses. So Tami and I are going to have a little talk about it, right, Tami?
Yeah. So I assume that people understand, wrongfully so, that we don't fix horses. So a lot of times people are like, can you help me fix my horse? I don't fix horses. I facilitate a possibility for the body to return to a better state of being. And I think the thing that happens when we look for that instant fix, or when we try to go too fast, is we're overriding nature. And the reality is you can't hurry tissue, you can't hurry nature. It has its own time. And I think when we start to think in terms of what am I fixing, we lose reality with what we are dealing with. We're never fixing. I always think about, especially what I do, is support. And for those that follow me, they know that, I talk about the tensegrity in the body, that kind of three-dimensional shape that is maintaining its tension. If we fix one area, that has an implication on everything else. And so the moment people start shifting things around, they're not taking into account how that affects the rest of the body, because how that affects the body is individual to each and every horse, because it depends on their history, right? And so one horse might have fallen as a foal, might have some foot issues, might have a bad saddle, an unbalanced rider, sit in a box and do a certain job. And there might be a different horse that has a totally different lifestyle, that when you do that same manipulation to them, you're going to get a totally different result. And I think very often my problem with the fixing is this assumption that we just change that and it'll all be good.
Well, I think, again, when I do what I do, I enable, for instance, the hoof to go back to more normalcy, and it's per situation.
Right.
And it's a give and take, and I readjust. There are some basic parameter of keeping the capsule around the bone, supporting the weight around the bone, and having something synergetic to the natural mechanical property of the hoof. Hoof is skin. And since I train horses, I don't think you can actually fix things, because first of all, it's not normal to ride horses.
No.
Not at all. You cannot use shoes to make gait. You might use shoes to help, maintaining that capsule around the bone, but you can't do more than that, and kind of spread the load, blah, blah, etc. But as far as fixing, I think it's really dangerous. And everyone tried to look and measure the hip and the thong, and blah, blah, blah. But I think kinematics of joints are very complicated. If the sole arch is kind of not functioning, and I'm not talking about negative plane, but it's not in the right place, it's not a question of long toe. I don't know, you cannot tell how the horse has compensated, really. It's so complicated.
Not unless you look at the whole body.
Exactly.
I think my problem a lot of times is people tend to think very local, so they want to address an issue in a foot or in a body part, and we all come in and we all do these things, we manipulate the body, and a lot of times there'll be, and I'm guilty of it, doing it as well, and I try and be cognizant of that, where we don't just look at the before and after of that local area. Because the thing is, and for those that have worked with me, they know, right, and I've showed it to you on your horses, it's the whack-a-mole syndrome. So you pop something in somewhere and, hey, look at that sacrum, isn't it great? And you go around the front and you're like, oh, right? So tension goes somewhere. And the key to supporting these horses so that they can do a job they weren't designed to do is to allow for them to redistribute it evenly, to allow for them to have room to compensate. And I often think about the people that I send to you, where I'm like, you support the foot so it can get to a place of better functionality in relationship to what the horse is being asked to do.
Right.
Right. And that takes time.
It takes time because, for instance, if I get a horse that is metal shod, you already have a different beast, to work with. Because it's and again, horses need some form of shoeing. I'm not attacking anything. But there's also a physical reality in the horn that doesn't match metal. But that's a different discussion. But I think, the danger is to make assumption of things we don't know. I don't know how that foot is going to... Because if the horse has compensated over the capsule because it has a lot of neurotransmitter, pain receptors everywhere, because it's skin, you don't know how the horse has compensated for some issue. So you're expecting the horse in its own neurology and perception, which is more like a holographic memory of its body, to actually readjust itself in one time. It's not going to happen. But the problem with the horse industry, everyone wants quick fixes. We are an industry that loves to manipulate animals because look at all the things we do with them. It's just based on manipulation for our own pleasure. And I'm totally pro giving a job to horses. I don't think they should be staying in pasture, do nothing. But if you are going to start working with horses, you have to start thinking about what we do with them, give them time, give the foot time. And I think why people want to fix, in the profession, whether it's farrier or veterinarian, that put under tremendous pressure to get fixes immediately. Yes. So it's not their fault. It has created a culture of kludging things because they never have time to give the horse a chance. That's
where that cycle of breakdown starts.
Right.
Because the thing is, for the horse to proprioceptively, neurologically assimilate any changes that we are offering it through manipulating the body or the foot takes time. If we think about how long it takes somebody to learn a new pattern of movement or of kind of proprioception, if you think about stroke people, how long does it take to relearn that? When you change these things so instantly, you are opening the body up for more damage. And I think that's what sometimes I find hard to swallow is like, does it look better? Yes. Does it function better? Maybe. But the brain doesn't know. The tissue doesn't know. And the horse certainly can't organize itself, right? And the problem is the tissue is also not used to that load pattern. So now we have a horse that's going, oh, wait, I can move better, and they go full out, and things fall apart because the tissue's not ready for it. And then there is the element of, people talk about pain. Well, pain is in the brain, right? It is a response to sensory input from the body. So when we address these structures, and this is like a big thing for me when I teach my students as well, is let's figure out where it's coming from. Is it coming from an overstimulated nervous system? Is it coming from fascial nociception? Is it coming from the tendons and ligaments? Is it actually coming from bone or periosteum? What is causing that pain? Because if you address all the structures...
And I think we're inferring a lot of what we think it's pain in some area, because it's not because it's blinking red. That actually is the main cause of pain when it's blinking red. Say you find something, obviously if you tear something or the legs is broken, that's different. So it's complicated because pain, again, our brain is important, but I think there's also the body think on its own. So, you have all this proprioception happening that doesn't get the message because it's blocked somewhere, and it needs to readjust. And maybe, a little bit of arthritis somewhere might not be the cause of the pain. It might be something completely different.
That's a whole different
we're not going to go there.
The fact that very often we are seeing the end result of something that is quite silent and on the other side of the body, which is why whenever people say to me, oh, I dealt with that, I'm like, okay, you dealt with it, but what caused it?
Right.
And I think that's the question that never gets asked is, why did this happen? We're always looking at the result. So, we look at these horses that have really contracted feet, for instance, like in your world, or have, navicular issues. Okay, well, why did that happen? There's a reason for it. It's quite simple,
Right.
I can walk it back. Like a lot of the times, it has to do with the fact that these horses live in fight or flight. Everything's clenched. Everything's up here. That continuous tension changes the way the foot is.
I think there's also a factor besides that. We're not breeding horses like we used to. That's also, we're breeding horses for one function. It's only jumpers, only dressage, or only reiners. But you know, horses used to be working animals that had to have carrying capacity for us because they had to work with us. And so now we have refined horses for certain niche, and I think we've done a tremendous damage to breed. And also we're starting horses way too young, so the damage is right there. So conformation and that. And then there's stress. And you have contractors who are stressed because we're all, you know, we're all guilty in this generation to show off, to get more stuff, to look smart, to be first. You can tap dance or throw a tennis ball at the same time and write a book, you know, like by the age of 5, you know.
So again, we come back to this concept of like, what is the time that is needed? And I think that's something that repeats probably for you and for me all the time when people are like, I had this one lady say to me, how long do I need to keep doing these exercises?
Forever.
And I'm like, well, how long do you want the horse to last?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this concept of like, I think it's really hard for people. It's just like dieting. Hence, you know, I'm not skinny because
I wasn't going to say anything.
Because the thing is, you can do it for a certain amount of time. You can get super fit and super skinny, but if you don't stick to the lifestyle, I see her in photos, like in shows and stuff, and I'm like, girlfriend, are you doing your exercises? Because that right hind, right? And she'll be like, oh yeah, I didn't have, and I can tell it's so obvious.
Well, I mean,
but she does a little, and the horse stays together.
Right.
In an awesome way.
But it's the same thing. I'm finally recovered from an injury. I tore the gluteus minimus. It's a butt muscle. It's a hip elevator muscle, and you know, even now it's healed. I still sometimes just in my head get used to just raise my right leg where I had the injury because and I don't have pain. It just, so it takes a while, and you know, I do yoga, I do qigong, I do body weight, I do all sorts of things. I'm pretty physically active, but it takes also, and I do breathing exercise, cold showers, everything, because I want to live till I'm 100. But because I want to continue bugging people. But I think it requires dedication, and I think a lot of people think, you know, yeah, I do a quick fix and it's over, but it's never going to happen this way.
You know what? I had
a quick fix are not working.
Recent epiphany. I treated this horse. Yes, I get them every once in a while.
You think I'm a genius?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
So I had this recent epiphany where this horse that had visual issues that's coming to you to get its feet done, right? And I'm looking at this horse and I'm looking at how the eyes are sitting in the socket and I'm looking at how the feet are and I'm like, huh. And then I have the minute where I go, oh my God, you're so dumb. Because I know that embryologically, embryologically,
I just want to make sure.
The eyes and the feet come from the same tissue. So if your feet are buggered, your eyes are buggered. Now I want to know how many people, when they go and adjust a horse's feet, ever consider how is that affecting the rest of the horse?
Right. Well, this is why, you know, for me, when I do feet, I keep it very simple. There's not many parameters you can touch. You know, it's to keep the capsule around the bone, the articulation, understanding the foot is asymmetric, supporting the load. You know, you might change the brake over a little bit and slide the shoe a little bit here and there, but it's not a huge amount of things what other people do. And because you can't. We
talked about this. This is the beauty of, like, even what I do. When people come to my class, they go, that's it? And I go, yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Because really, if you don't over-complicate and overdo, you can get a lot more done. Nature takes the simplest route, right? Like, evolution is about function. And so the moment we over-manipulate, like, we just go over that balance, we tip the balance, and then the body's forever compensating for what we think we did to help.
Well, I mean, you know, it's based on ego, and horses don't talk, so it does attract a lot of control freaks. And
that's the one thing I want to know. When people say, oh, the horse loves it, or the horse is in pain, or that's so much better, and I'm like, well, how do you know?
Right.
Because even though like you and I might get visual quantifiable differences between, you know, when we started and like when we consider like we've affected a change, in theory the horse is maybe moving better and I think the horse is better, but we don't know. We can't keep assuming that, you know, that these things that we're doing are better, or make these assumptions about what the horse is like feeling or what is really going on, because the thing is, we really need to look long term. And the thing is, how many people do you know that get like these fixes and 18 months down the line the horse is broken down, right? If you look at so many of these over manipulated things, because the body can't cope.
I have been lucky because I've kept data on horses for 20 years, you know, so I have some inkling it does work better. But you know, for me, again, it's always very, that's why I'm not a guru, because I know there's so many things.
You're not a guru.
No, you know, I'm not a guru, I'm sorry, but I could become one. You know, if you give me enough money, I'm ready to do it. So, you know, exactly.
Sorry, what?
Are you ready to pay me?
Okay. I'm ready to pay you.
Okay. Because otherwise I'm not going to give you my wisdom, all right?
Okay.
It's all about money. But the thing is, you know, I think even I never have the assumption it's going to work. So it's not like I'm neurotic. But, you know, I don't make those assumptions, and I'm trying to be self-effacing. Mm-hmm. Speak it in English. Come on, give me a break. This is not my mother tongue.
Effacing.
Thank you. Self-effacing, you know, because I think I'm just a conduit to helping. This is not me who invented all these things, you know?
I don't think.
And I like
either.
to wait and see, and I do understand it's not always possible. That's why when I have clients, I say it's going to take time. You can still ride the horse, but don't do this, don't do that. And if they do it, they don't come back. I have the luxury to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. But anyway, try to not overdo it. Right? Last word?
Yeah, try to not overdo it.
Well,
we just covered everything in the
exactly.
universe.
Exactly. What great.